If you are not tracking every single lead source, you are 100% lighting money on fire. Hey, you guys, I'm Elizabeth Lytle. I am the head of community at Contractor Dynamics. Welcome to the Nailed It podcast, where we join you every single week and we bring you marketing tips and tricks and stories to help you go from marketing chaos and marketing stress and waste to clarity and confidence. Today, I am joined by Joe Scardino. Joe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. Good. I'm so glad to have you on. Thanks so much for being my guest today. Yeah, good stuff. Well, Joe, tell everybody the elevator version of who you are and what you're doing here.
All right. So my name is Joe. I do work for a company called Bain's Roofing. We're out of Southeast Pennsylvania. The owner of the company has been a friend of mine since fifth grade. So I was at another corporation back in 2018. And he was telling me that he needed someone for sales because company was getting bigger. So I was like, all right, I'm done with the corporate thing for a while. So I joined, did sales. I enjoyed sales. I enjoyed talking to the people, but then we had a need for really managing the marketing stuff, helping with operations. So I proposed that idea and, like, hey, I don't mind not getting on tall roofs anymore. So came back down to the office job, and now that's where I am here. So it was a good transition, and I think it was needed for me. And my wife is not sad that I don't get on high roofs anymore. So,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Maybe a little safer to be in the office.
Yeah,
Very good.
I mean, it can be good, bad. I mean, it's the getting off. I didn't like, once I'm up there, I'm good, but and then other people just run up and down that I see. So I'm like, that's not me. So.
Spider-Man. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Eric Richardson, a good friend of Contractor Dynamics, the client from some time ago, a member of Revolt, told me a story at RoofCon a few years ago that he was out and he was going to do an inspection on a roof, and the homeowner was home and said he needed to climb the roof with Eric because he wanted to make sure everything was okay, and he wanted to make sure he got an honest assessment out of it. And Eric thought, okay, sure, climb the roof with me. And so the homeowner got on top of the roof with Eric and then could not get down. He was stuck. He was freezing. Couldn't get down. And Eric ended up carrying this man off of the roof. And honestly, that would be me. I could get up, but the getting down part is definitely...
because you got to cross your leg over, and then you're like, if you don't make it...
That's right. Yeah, much respect for people who are able to do that with all sorts of tools and all of that. Big respect from me, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff. Awesome. Well, Joe, let's get into it. Let's talk specifically today about tracking. And while I know tracking is not the sexiest marketing subject, it is 1,000% vital to make sure that we're not wasting money, lighting things on fire, and to make sure that we actually drive revenue from our marketing. So Here's a common problem that I see in the roofing industry. People are spending marketing dollars, or they're, working with a company and they've got some budget allocated towards some ads, but they really don't have any insight on what's working and what's not working. Have you guys been in that place before?
Absolutely. That is one of the biggest problem we've come across. We're throwing our money here. Where is it going? What's working? Who can tell us if it's working? So that was one of the biggest issues we had, is we felt like we were, leads could come in, leads could not come in. And we know we were throwing money at things. We were throwing money at things that we thought and heard worked well, but we couldn't measure it. And things that could be measured, we still weren't measuring it. Now, partially that was because on our end, we weren't aware how to best do that. And then partially the transparency wasn't there on the companies we were throwing our money at. So that was the biggest thing that that we've learned in the last 1 to 2 years. It's like, you have to track, you have to know, you have to be aware of wherever you're going, if that matters to you. Now, most companies, I would assume, and are, there's, national companies, but most roofing exterior companies are companies like mine, where their family businesses been around 30, 40 years. And that kind of matters. That really matters as far as where your money's going. So that is the biggest thing. I fully agree with you saying that if you don't track and you don't know where it's going, that's not good. You have to get that under wraps right away.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is what are we missing out on? If we're not doing that, what are you missing out on? In what ways is that hurting us?
You can ask yourself simple questions. How much am I throwing at this monthly? How much am I throwing at yearly? What does this lead cost me from source A? What is the return on ad spend I'm getting from? I have 5 different sources where I'm throwing it. What's working? I don't know. If I don't track that data, I don't know what's working. So until I find that out, until I say, wait a minute, where am I going here? I think it's good, but I don't know. You have to really track it. So you're not going to get an answer to any of those numbers. Now, if you're a marketing manager and you have a boss who wants to know that, and you just say, I don't know, you don't want to do that. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know where your money's going, because that's
yeah.
And like you said, it's not very fun. It's data. It's data, just tons of data. Do a deep dive and figure it out. So.
That's right. Yeah. If you don't track your sources properly, here's one of the things that can happen. Number one, if you don't really know what's working and what's not working, you're absolutely missing out on an opportunity, because there could be a place that's working really well that you could scale up and get better results and close more revenue. There could be an area that's absolutely draining your dollars. And if you're not 100% aware of that, you don't know to reallocate that budget. You don't know to stop that campaign. You don't know to move away from that particular source. And without that knowledge, there's such an opportunity cost. It's one of the most common things that I see when I do marketing audits in the industry is that people know that something's broken in their marketing, but they don't know what. And so they're missing so much opportunity and revenue and wasting a lot of money. And digging into the tracking, even though it's that like painful, prickly work, it allows us to make better decisions and close more deals and waste a lot less. So yeah, today, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what to track. I want to talk about why tracking matters. And I want to talk about a simple system that you can implement right away to get better results from your marketing and stop wasting so much. So let's start off with something that some people may not be aware of or even understand, and that is UTM tracking. I want to talk about that a little bit. Most people are skipping this, and this is a big mistake. So essentially what UTM tracking means is we are able to put some little snippets of code and use unique pages to be able to track not only individual marketing sources, but individual campaigns, which allows us to literally know this particular ad campaign that my agency is running is getting lots of clicks and no conversions. However, this Facebook ad that I'm running is getting clicks and conversions. Now I know I'm going to move my money from there over here so that I can get better results. Are you guys doing any of that at Bain's Roofing right now, Joe?
Yep. So we're doing that on a smaller level right now. Now, when I say that, it's because this is the first year we're really that's dialing in to see where our money is going to each channel. So I think next year is where we're going to say, all right, here's what we spent. Here's what we got out of it. Here's how we're going to create our budget now. So right now we're in the process of, I guess we're in the phase of, these are the channels we want to do. And these are the channels that are working for us. So now we're going to budget accordingly to that. So right now we have about 5 different areas where we're doing, things that we thought worked in the past. We stopped after Q2. So
why'd you stop?
Because the ROAS, for all you who want to know the term, the return on ad spend was not there, and we're seeing how much it was expensive mediums, and we're like, it's just not working. So after we were looking at two mediums, our return on ad spend was not there, and they were very expensive mediums. So now that we were able to track in a list of every single thing that we were doing, I'm seeing the gaps in my sheet of like, why am I spending all this money here when I'm getting 5 leads, when I'm spending less money here and getting more leads? Let me increase that budget. So it took the first 2 quarters to figure that out, but now it's like these 2 expensive mediums are not going to do. So it's amazing just by looking and analyzing and recording that data. We're able to see that and shift accordingly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good.
You have to do it.
You'll waste less and you'll be able to close more, which is huge. That's the big piece here. I think some people feel a little bit, they hear these like firms and they don't understand landing pages or call tracking, or they look at spreadsheets and they get a little bit overwhelmed. But the reality is that if we want to fill our salespeople's pipelines with excellent, high quality leads, and if we want to stop wasting so much money so that we can be more profitable, this is the work that we have to be done. That has to be done, right? Yeah. I heard you say that you can look at all the different sources in your sheet or on a page. Yeah. What are you describing? Do you have like some kind of a tracking sheet, or is this in your CRM? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one of my goals this year, since I took over this role, is I wanted to have a master sheet. If anyone in the company wants to see what we're doing, what's being spent, and how we're doing, I want it to be accessible. And I honestly still, it's always a work in progress. I'm still tweaking it because when you do a deep dive into things and then you're thinking like, wait a minute, I should actually add this or I should add that, because it's going to work with different numbers that you have. Once you visually see that, it really makes a difference. So now I have it dialed down as to like the past 5 years, all the leads that we got, all the ad spend that we had, best sources that we used. Best lead sources that we had. I have everything broken down by year now, then by quarter. Same amounts of data. The revenue, the sales by lead source. What is the best lead source for us? If it's a piece of data that you can track, it's on that sheet in a nice organized way. And it takes a lot of doing. I've redone it like 4 or 5 times, but I think we're finally there. And it's at a sheet where it's nice, so easy to read, it's organized, and you can see like so many points of data, which is like exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Having clarity and confidence that you're focused on the right things is not only does it reduce everybody's stress level, but also it gives us the ability to make such good decisions about our marketing. So we're not just, like you said earlier, you guys were kind of trying things that you heard might have worked, but now you're making data-driven decisions. And that is the kind of marketing
that is the case.
That's right.
It may work for a roofing company 2 hours down the road. They may have huge success. So let's do it. No, we tried it. It didn't work. So here's what we're going to do. And it's exactly what we said, data-driven solution, objectives that we're doing now.
Yeah. Love that. That's awesome. Yeah. I want to go back to the whole UTM tracking for just a moment and clarify kind of what I mean by that and why that's so important. So you all, one of the common things that I see when I audit people's marketing, when they come to us and say something's broken, is that I'll see things like, we've got a bunch of marketing out there and we're tracking overall leads that we're getting and overall sales, that kind of thing. We all love to track a lot of that, like sales data, right? We're looking at that really frequently. But when we're not able to differentiate when a lead comes from our truck wraps versus our yard signs versus our Facebook ad campaign versus our Google pay-per-click versus local service ads. When we're not able to differentiate, it's really difficult to give credit where credit is due. It's very difficult to watch a buyer journey. And it's very difficult to know, like, should we buy more yard signs? Should we do postcards again? Should we, is this actually driving traffic to the website? Are we getting impressions? So when we don't have that information, we don't have the insights that we need to be able to, like you're saying, improve. to be able to get better, to be able to have confidence that we can go from 5 to 10 million if we don't have a good plan, right? So the UTM tracking is going to give us the ability to follow people's journey to know what's really working. And it gives us insights on the lead generation metrics and the brand awareness metrics, because then I can go to my website and say, wow, you know what? I haven't closed a deal from social media yet, but a lot of people from social media are visiting my website. So that tells me I'm doing something right, right? Or, hey, well, I now have a unique landing page for this Facebook campaign for each of them. And now I know this campaign's not working, but this one is working. So I'm going to move my dollars here, right? So it just gives us the insight that we need to be able to understand our actual ideal customers' buying journey and what's working, what's not working, so that we have that, like those data-driven decisions that you're able to make right now, Joe. So if you're a listener and you are not tracking effectively, you don't have a beautiful sheet like the one that Joe has created, or if you're not really sure what's working or not working, I would highly recommend that you stop right now. You click the little button that says subscribe right below this video and you follow along, because every single week we're giving you tips and tricks and very simple processes to be able to have the kind of confidence that Joe has in the marketing activities that he's making. So subscribe to the channel, make sure you follow along. But let's get back into kind of our next point that I want to work through here, Joe, which is lead source accountability. So you have this beautiful sheet, and there's some people out there who work on their tracking, and they've got like some lead sources separated. But now that we have that information, what do we do with that? How often should we be looking at that sheet? How often should we be like talking to other team members about that? What do we do once we have that information? Any recommendations?
Yeah. So for me, I hold a weekly meeting and I decided on like 6 or 8 data points that I want to bring up weekly. So it can be anything. So for me, I pick like 3 different lead sources that I want to make sure I'm always tracking. I want to do, the dollars spent that week. It doesn't have to be this. These are just things that I do. And then another data point that I always do is, if you are launching, a type of campaign where it is very ad specific. So for example, we have a meta page or a meta ad, and I made a Google sheet. So if anyone fills out a specific form on Meta, Facebook, it'll go to this sheet. Now that sheet doesn't go into our CRM. So that could be a missed opportunity if you don't track that piece of data, because you're spending money on a campaign. Now, not all CRMs are the same, but if you're spending money on a campaign and you want to make sure you're tracking it and it doesn't go directly into your CRM, there's certain things you have to do. So there's extra pieces of information that you have to manually do. But yeah, I would, what I do is once a week, always make sure you're tracking or looking at a certain set of data points that you want to make sure you're not letting slip away, where it's either not working or you're like, whoa, $10,000 in the last 2 weeks. What happened? That's, a third of my budget here. So it's good for the marketing manager because you're not going to get yelled at for doing your quarter of your budget in 2 days. And B, it really allows you to see the data points that you want to make sure that you're always doing it. So for example, we run on the EOS model. So I have there's data points weekly, actually twice a week, but at least once weekly where I always look at them. So you want to make sure you always do that.
Very good. Yeah. Love it. Yeah. It's one thing if you have the data, but you've got to do something with the data, right? We have to actually optimize. We have to view the data. We have to figure out what story the data is telling us and then take some action on that data. I love that you've talked about that you're looking over things on a weekly basis. I also like how you talked about earlier that you're looking backwards and you are making assessments based on, what's worked, annually as well. And that's a big thing that I think some people miss is we're all excited about our next goal, right? We did, 5 million last year. This year we're doing 10 million. All right, awesome. What's the plan? Well, we're going to do more, right? But in order to actually know that we can get there, we need a real plan. We need to know all right, we're going to spend this on this. or we're going to hire these particular people, right? So we need to look at things on a micro basis, week over week, month over month, but we need to look quarter over quarter and year over year as well in order to be able to make really good decisions. So Joe, you've talked a lot about this, that you've got all of this information, you've got this beautiful sheet. You guys are looking at it on a regular basis. Tell me about information in your CRM. Tell me about what information you're gathering there, what you need from the sales team there. We hear lots of complaints about my sales team doesn't update the information like they should. What information do we need held in our CRM?
So the biggest piece of data that I like and need from our CRM is the lead source. So you have to be super specific. So one of the things we have is, for example, there's a lot of people call in. So we get Google LSA ads and pay-per-click ads and SEO type things. So, and Facebook. Now, the average person says, "Oh, I saw you on the internet. I saw you on the internet." Okay. So I have my guys do, did you see us on Facebook? Did you Google us? Or did you see your ad? And over time, I've developed certain ad source or lead sources where whoever enters the lead can pick that source. Now that allows me to, when I do my report, at the end of the month and update the month, it tells me the exact lead source it's coming from. So the other thing is, I would suggest, one thing we don't have, we started our SEO and PPC campaigns with a non-specific landing page, just kind of a form. So I would suggest anyone that's wanting to start this, if you have multiple pages on your website, that go right to your CRM, name the forms a different type thing. So for example, if you're on your homepage, name it the homepage form. If you're on your referral page or about us, name it your About Us form. That'll help you track where that lead is coming from in your CRM. So when you do run that report from your CRM, you're going to say, "Oh, I got 20 leads from homepage." And our one PPC is, then you'll know our PPC ad is only going to the homepage. So we spent $2,000 on PPC. We got 20 leads because I know that tracked went right into our CRM. So all that to say, lead sources in your CRM is super important, and it's important to be very specific about. That is the biggest thing. And I mean, besides all the other things, you want to prepare your guys for how old the roof is. Do they actually need a full roof replacement? So you're going into there knowing that if it's a hot lead that you want to be ready. But from the marketing standpoint, you want to make sure that you have a super specific lead source in there.
Yeah, for sure. I had a meeting with somebody a couple of weeks ago who said, we track lead sources in our CRM. And I said, awesome. Let's take a look at that. And, they had, hundreds of people, in the other category, where, there's, yeah, sure. There's Google and there's Facebook and all that. And then there's a big old chunk of other, and other was more than, any of the other ones. Yeah. And so I love that you have people asking those specific questions. Was it a Facebook ad? Did you actually Google us? Kind of digging in a little bit more. We might feel uncomfortable doing that, but it gives us really good information. Is there something specific that you saw? What made you move forward right now? What made you call us? Did you see something specific? So it can be your sales team, or it could even be the person who answers the phone asking, a couple of more questions. Yep. But that is why we love unique landing pages, because when we have unique landing pages, especially for our ads, that's going to give us really good information because you can only land there from that particular ad. And it allows us to know with confidence, we don't even have to dig in much more because we know that they landed there. However, we do know that some people they'll be at home and they'll see that you guys, Bain's roofing is on the street, and they'll see some trucks, and then they'll be scrolling Facebook. And because Bain's roofing is super smart and they run Facebook ads, they'll see, oh, look, Bain's roofing on my phone. And then they'll, go on the computer and they'll Google, and then they'll get distracted and they'll come back and they'll Google again, and then they'll call. So nobody calls in and says, I saw you 16 different places and here's what they all are, right? That'd be great if they did, but they don't. However, that kind of tracking allows us to see some of that. It allows us to be able to do that kind of thing, which is great. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Good stuff. Well, I would love to know, I heard you earlier say that you shifted some of your budget because of the tracking that you've done. Can you share a little bit more about that? Like, what exactly have you guys done in terms of changing budget or changing sources due to the data?
So we were doing a certain type of direct mail and outdoor advertising. And outdoor advertising, you run that more of a brand awareness type thing. But when we're trying to get heavy into lead gen, and we know there's sources that are working, we took a significant part of our budget and gave it to the outdoor advertising. And then we're like, okay, I don't think that's going to work for us because we know it does. It has brand awareness and that is healthy. But if we have other mediums that have trackable brand awareness type things, let's keep it there and then use the other budget to do lead gen stuff that we know has been working for us. So, that was, almost $20,000 of things that we could actually track and utilize for our current needs.
Huge.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Instead of just assuming that, our manners out there are great. Our billboards, we enjoyed it. We like seeing them, but we never got really feedback. We haven't heard, a couple of people, mostly Bain's members, and because we're all looking for them, like, I saw our billboard. But it's like, I couldn't track it really unless, you have a number on it for call tracking and all that stuff. But for us, we didn't. And it was just something we decided, like, we can go elsewhere and track how effective it is.
Sure. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Like you said earlier, I love this that you said is the reality is that marketing is different for every company. What works for one company isn't necessarily the right fit for another company. There's so many different ways you can do marketing. There's so many different avenues, right? But you have to make the decisions based on your specific goals and your specific data, which you guys are doing now, which is huge. Just doing what your buddy in Florida is doing when you're located in a different area does not mean it's the right decision for you. So being able to have that data and make those kind of decisions is huge. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. I heard you talking earlier about, you guys were working with some other third parties and some other agencies. I hear this a lot from some people. People will say, oh, yeah, I would have to ask my marketing company what our marketing plan is, number one. Or I'll hear, my marketing company is doing the tracking. I'd have to ask them about that data. And what I hear when I hear people say that is you are allowing someone on the outside of your company to dictate what you're doing, completely what you're doing with marketing. And you have no visibility into like your actual numbers. Do you see any red flags with that?
Absolutely, because I couldn't get a good answer as to why we're going like this, flat and not going up. But I did see that deficit in my bank account as to getting our money taken everywhere. Reporting wasn't there. Money was being spent. I didn't see returns. And I can't just assume. How long am I going to assume that, they're doing the right thing? Or because I couldn't see any results. It was just very, I'm not knocking anyone, but it was just not right for us because I didn't have any transparency and I couldn't see results. I couldn't see a clear picture as to why things weren't working. And the only thing that I knew was for sure is our money was being spent. But so whether that has to do with how good the company is at their job or the layers of transparency they gave to their clients. So that was a big thing as to why we switched things up. And that is something that I suggest everyone ask questions. It's your money. It's your campaigns. Make sure you say, I want to see this. You're telling me that Google changed their algorithms. Show me where, because I hired you to tell me about Google and how they changed their algorithms. I don't know about it. I want you to explain it to me and tell me why we're spending $5,000 a month, but didn't get anything or any traction or new visitors. So don't be afraid to ask questions. If it's your money, that's your campaign. They work for you.
That's huge. I love what you're talking about, being active, asking the hard questions. even if you do not understand SEO, Google, Facebook, whatever, marketing at all, even if it sounds like gibberish to you, if you are spending money on marketing, you absolutely have to ask the hard questions. It pains me when I hear people say, yeah, well, we've spent, 6 months, 8 months, a year with, working with this other company. I don't know. It's just not working. And I'll say, take charge. You have to step up and say, this isn't working. What are we doing to get better results? What does this chart mean? Hey, I see this one chart, but I see all these other things that aren't working. Let's focus on how we can get better results from our marketing. Because if excellent marketing, if you're, doing marketing well, you should be getting better and better results over time. And the more transparency, that's a word you've used like 4 different times on this call. Transparency. When you have that, you should be able to make adjustments to get better results, to stop wasting, to see more revenue, to get higher quality leads. So ask the hard questions. Even if you don't really understand things, ask them. Like you said, explain it to me. Give me the kindergarten version so we're on the same page, because it's so vital for you to have an understanding of what's going on. 100%. Yeah. Okay, so then let me ask you this question so we can give everybody a really direct answer. If you're working with a third party, should you also be doing your own tracking?
Yes.
Simple, straightforward. 1000% you have to do your own tracking.
Because you can't, if you don't, you're just going to assume. So if your numbers are different than theirs, you have to know why. And it's always good to know. I mean, now don't make it, you have to absolutely track. That's what I do. I know people, they track and I get reports, but I do my own thing. I do my own deep dive every month from our CRM now.
Awesome. Yeah, that's huge. You got to have that control, not because every marketing agency is shady, 100% not. But because you are going to have valuable information to be able to share with your agency so that we can all get better results. They are going to have a certain set of data. You're going to have another set of data. We can spot things that are going wrong faster. We can stop wasting faster. We can make adjustments based on like how many leads we're setting, how those appointments are going, if they're ideal, if we're actually closing deals, if we're actually getting more traffic to the website. So when we have that, we have control. We have more power, more transparency to make really good results. So that's huge. Joe, I'm going to share my screen for just a moment, and I want to show people just a couple of quick examples of what their tracking could potentially or should potentially look like. Everybody does things a little bit differently, but I'd love to show a couple quick examples, and then we will wrap it up.
All right.
Now, this is just an example, but when Joe was talking about looking over information on a weekly and sometimes a few times a week basis, we want to make sure that we have a place where our data is held. This, for example, is a system called Steady. We use this at Contractor Dynamics because we run on EOS, similar to Bain's roofing. But what I want to give you a picture of is we're looking over brand awareness data. We're looking over new members to our group that we have. We're looking at people who are engaging with our company. We're looking at people who are opening emails. We're looking at people who are booking calls. So this is the kind of information that you guys can go through as well on a regular basis. And you want to have a place where you've got goals, you're tracking, you're paying really close attention to what's working and what's not working on a weekly and a monthly basis. I'm going to show you another one here, and I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can see. There's a scorecard here that we just created a simple one for a client of ours where they needed to get everything in one place, right? And month over month, they're looking at leads. They're looking at appointments. They're looking at contacts by individual source. They're looking at what they're spending as a whole. They're even looking at things like website traffic, new reviews on Google. So it gives them a place to look week over week and know whether they're on track or off track. And when you're tracking this data, you can, again, make really good pivots to make sure you're profitable at the end of the year and you're able to stay on track with your revenue goals. All right, to close it up, you guys, let's recap the things that we've talked about. Number one, you should be tracking by individual source. Number two, you need to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and cut what doesn't, so that you can ensure that you can get to your revenue goals and still be profitable. This seems really simple, but it's missed frequently by companies who are, they not lead flow, and so they're kind of not paying attention to it, and by people who don't have consistent lead flow. So make sure that if you do not have clean numbers and data and you're not tracking by source, that you stop after this call and go do the work to put this kind of thing together. If you do not have a beautiful sheet like we just showed or a system to hold this data, reach out to our team. We're happy to share with you and walk you through how you can build something like this for your company. So, Joe, you've been working with Contractor Dynamics for a little while now. Would you say that this is one of the things you guys have been working on recently, or is there another big takeaway that you've got from your time?
So tracking was the biggest thing that I wanted to do. We all wanted to know where our money was going. What I realized is people who are managing their marketing program don't just think you know where you're going with your dollars. Have yourself a visual, whether that be the sheets, whether you write it down weekly and keep a nice log. If you're old school and want to do a pencil and paper, do it. But don't just assume and think you know where your things are going, because like I said, with internet marketing, depending on how trends are this way, that way, if you don't look at your data every week, at least every week, and you don't track it, you're not going to be able to see if there's a surge or a plunge, or it's not good for the company to not be on top of that. So track it. Don't think it. Don't think you have an idea of how things are going based off of you get an email if you're the marketing manager because you get a monthly, they charge my account, so they must be doing our marketing. But what does that actually look like? You have to know. Don't think, track it, have a visual, and then you're going to be like, wow, I'm glad I did this now and not waited. So that is my takeaway, to do the work and actually have a piece of data, whether that be an Excel sheet, a pie graph, or a Word doc of tracking. You have to do it. Track.
That's right. Yeah.
Track.
Good stuff. It's non-negotiable. Track. Make sure you're doing it. Yeah, it's gonna help you actually close deals. I know we all want to focus on sales and that next contract and collecting the money, but this is what allows us to future-proof our business and make sure that no matter what the cash flow looks like and the closing looks like, that we know confidently what is going on in the business, the health of the business, the health of our marketing, so that we can make great decisions. Awesome stuff, Joe. Thank you so much for that. Well, you guys, if you are looking at your marketing and thinking, wow, I have nothing like that. I'm not tracking on a regular basis. I don't know what's working or what's not working. I'm definitely not using any kind of UTM codes, definitely not using landing pages or call numbers. This is an area that we would strongly recommend that you look into in your business so that you do not get yourself in a hole that is very difficult to get out of. So if you have some questions on that, there is going to be a link below. I would be happy to meet with you and provide you some clarity and some confidence with your marketing. So click that button, fill out the form, meet with our team. We're not scary. We're not going to bite your head off. We'll do a light audit for you and give you some feedback so that you have a plan for going from absolute chaos to clarity with your marketing. Joe, would you say that reaching out to Contractor Dynamics and spending time with us has been worth it for you?
Absolutely. It really put us on the map in our company as far as knowing where we're going with marketing, what we want to do, and simple strategies that you're saying, why did we not think of that? Like, that's so small. And things that we thought were good before, if we look back, it's kind of cringeworthy. But you don't know until someone tells you, no, that's don't do that. So that's the most rewarding part. And now we get tons of feedback about our videos, about the marketing, about how the messages we put out, from people we don't know, from people I know. Tom, the owner, he goes into a store and people are like, aren't you? And he's like, yes, I'm on Facebook. That's me. So Tom, we like putting him in our videos and he's recognized. So it's really cool.
Awesome. I love that. Good stuff. Awesome. Well, you all, thanks for listening today to our podcast. Stay tuned and make sure you subscribe, because our next video that's coming out, we are going to talk about how to stand out if you're in a saturated market. Now, everybody talks about how their market is the most saturated, but if you are in one that is, it's covered, there's a roofing company on every single corner, we are going to show you how to stand out without racing to the bottom and having to lower your prices. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and we'll see you next week.